Ever since I played The Case of the Golden Idol, I've been a sucker for that brand of point and click games. The ones that cause you to put on your detective hat as you hunt for clues and solve Mad Lib style deduction puzzles. Clearly, I'm not alone, as there have been more and more of these released every year. Confidential Killings, a detective game, represents the latest attempt to capture that magic. Its artwork, combining 1970s glamour with a noir aesthetic, has plenty of style. However, the puzzles lack substance, kneecapping attempts at intrigue and challenge by showing their hand far too early. There's a decent story, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun filling in the blanks of these deadly scenarios, but this was far from the killer experience I was hoping for. In Confidential Killings, you play the role of a homicide detective in the late 1970s. The first case appears to be a drunk driving accident, but as you examine the crime scene, it becomes clear that foul play occurred. From there, you'll solve a series of connected murders involving drugs, jealous lovers, crooked actors trying to get ahead, a meddling journalist, and a few dramatic twists along the way. As is standard in this type of game, each scenario presents you with a few mostly static images of the crime scene. First, you'll click through these scenes to get statements from witnesses, read various letters and documents, and examine pieces of evidence. Many of these contain highlighted words that, when clicked on, are added to a bank of names, nouns, and verbs used to fill in the blanks of a description of the crime and the names of the individuals involved. A few levels also require completing additional information, such as the order of events. Unfortunately, figuring out how to plug these words into the description of events doesn't require all that much deduction, which is a major letdown. Far too often, Confidential Killings hands you the answer rather than providing just enough context to arrive at it yourself. This usually comes in the form of wordy letters and documents which add depth to the greater narrative but reveal far too much detail about the mystery at hand. Throughout most of my 3.5 hour playthrough, it felt more like I was doing a search and find rather than any puzzle solving, especially as it's easy to overlook a document that may contain a necessary clue. Once I had finally found all of the words, filling in the blanks was criminally straightforward. I still found some satisfaction in this. It's pleasant to get the big green stamp of approval for completion after all, but not anywhere near the level I get from similar games that ask more from the player. On the other hand, the artwork is well done. The cloudy blues and striking magentas combine with heavy shadows to create an awesome noir graphic novel aesthetic, apt for a detective game. While a bit tropey, I enjoyed the character designs and appreciated how detailed and consistent they were from scenario to scenario, making it easy to identify each of the several recurring characters. There are numerous fun nods to the glitz and glamour of the late 1970s as well, such as a magazine spoofing Cosmopolitan that contains headlines about the celebrity characters. For all its style, though, several scenes aren't that interesting to look at. This comes down to the events these images illustrate. Confidential Killings maintains a grounded approach, which I can appreciate, but its run of the mill stabbings and poisonings lack the shock and awe many of its contemporaries rely on to keep the player surprised and engaged, especially with the constraints of conveying dramatic events with still images. The connecting thread between all of these murder mysteries is a story centered around those involved in a stage play. Its writer and producer, the cast, even a down and out assistant who just can't quite seem to do her job correctly. There are backstabs, there are betrayals, there's an experimental creativity drug that appears to be behind several characters' bizarre actions and foul play. It's an intriguing premise, one that feels like it could have actually happened in the late 1970s. Confidential Killings does a great job of using the evidence found at the crime scenes to elaborate on the narrative, utilizing letters and documents to establish the characters' backgrounds and relationships. Despite consistent overwriting, I enjoyed reading them and analyzing the overarching mystery, hoping to get the satisfaction from piecing together a puzzle that the individual scenarios were depriving me of. Unfortunately, here again, Confidential Killings tips its hand. I saw each of the twists coming from a mile away, and the conclusion, while gratifying, was incredibly predictable. I can see the creator's attempts at providing hints and clues along the way, but the reality is they were all too obvious and heavy handed. The developers clearly understand the mechanics of making a mystery game, leaning heavily on the Golden Idol series for inspiration. However, I sense a lack of understanding of what makes a good mystery. There must be a restraint to leave questions unanswered. There must be trust that the player will pick up on subtle clues and make the appropriate connections. Without those elements, you have a dressed up word search and fill in the blank. And while Confidential Killings never quite reaches those lows, it wasn't far off either. While I've been harsh on it, it's not like I didn't have any fun playing Confidential Killings. The reality is that I enjoy Golden Idol style games, and this particular one looks nice, functions well, and has enough interesting characters and through lines to provide a few hours of entertainment. It's unlikely to tickle your brain in any satisfying way, which is incredibly disappointing, but if you're looking for a more grounded detective story, you could do far worse.